I'll start with where we started our healing process, and then I'll let Ed go, and then I'll circle back to where we are now in our healing process. So, I think our healing process really started with again, obedience. We talked about that a little bit already, but we started with counseling, right? Oftentimes, when you find yourself in situations like this, you can't help yourself out of it. You have to go to someone who can help you be objective and give you tips and tricks on how to get out of it. And so we went to a counselor. He probably promoted counseling more than I did. So honestly, he had to drag me to counseling. But, our first counselor, I think, is one of our best stories. So as we were walking out of our first session, she gave us a homework assignment. And the assignment was to write down our top 10 needs in a relationship. And hopefully nobody could tell, but at that moment when she said the word need, I started sweating, like physically sweating, because that word made me really, really uncomfortable. And it really is attached to, for me, a childhood experience. So, my parents were divorced when I was 12, and even though my dad was always still around, I saw my mom, put herself through graduate school and worked as a teacher, worked summers, did everything she could to continue to provide a great life for my sister and I. And so I translated that into she didn't need a husband, right? Because she was able to do all these things by herself. And so I that was one of the vows I had created was I don't need anybody. I can do all of this by myself. And so when she said that word need, it just like triggered something within me. Um, but I did do the homework assignment and write down my top 10 needs. And her rationale was if you can't articulate your top needs, how do you expect your spouse to know what they are? And if they don't know what they are, there's no hope in the world of them meeting those needs. And so, I did the assignment even though it was really uncomfortable, but I think it was really important in terms of the healing of our relationship because then, I realized it was hard for me to write the top 10 down. And so now, he had mine, I had his, and it was a little bit easier for us to communicate and to check in with each other as to whether we were meeting each other's needs.
Yeah, for me, I think the healing began with a little bit of the forgiveness part of it, of just understanding, um, not holding those things in, really letting go. And without that forgiveness, it was going to be difficult. And that forgiveness meant forgiving her, her forgiving me, but also we forgiving ourselves. Because without that, you're going to hold on to a lot of things. You're going to internalize those things and really we know that God asks us that when we're forgiving someone, we have to put that into the sea of forgetfulness. It's not something that you continually hold on to because you're never going to heal if you're continually holding on to that. And the other thing is recognizing where your happiness is coming from, right? I get happiness from my spouse, but she's not directly responsible for 100% of my happiness. If we can understand that, and realize that the other person in your relationship, they can't be 100% the thing that makes you happy
Right.
all the time. That's just
Right.
not fair. It's expectations that just cannot be met. And I
Right.
think once we have that, once Station I really realized that, as you mentioned, with going through the counseling, then it really put us in a better position to really start healing from what we went down with this marriage.
Yeah. And then where we are today in terms of our healing, I think being able to publish this book says it all almost. The fact that we, could have these conversations with our friends and our family, that we were going to be courageous enough to put this book out into the atmosphere, having to relive these situations was not easy, but that raw emotion and pain was not there. And that's how, at least for me, I know I'm healed because I didn't have that same, I didn't get angry. I didn't want to punch him. So, so that's for me, at least how I know we're healed is that we can retell the story, but we don't relive the pain of the story. And so I think that's really important as a checkpoint for whether you're healed or not, is if you can talk about it, but you don't have that same pain and feeling that was associated with it the first time.
That's good.